going on, guys? I hope you're having a great day out there today. Guys, today's video is going to be a little bit about my journey with learning about flying and all the little things that go along with it, and things I've purchased, things I wish I would have purchased differently, and overall some of the planes and the different characteristics. And if you're just learning how to get into flying and looking for some tips and ideas, obviously I'm still a noob in this thing, but there has been some things that I have learned already really quickly that some things that work, things that don't work, and things I wish I'd done differently. So if you're interested, stay tuned, everybody. So I figured the first thing we would cover here is a plane. What to start with, right? You see this question, at least I see this question constantly on a lot of the plane groups, on Facebook and different places. Everybody asking, I'm interested in getting into flying. What should I get first? Well, here's my opinion. Obviously, everybody has different budgets, depending on how you want to get into this thing. I started with the STS Apprentice on mine. I do not have that plane in my garage anymore. I actually donated that to my local flying field that I belong to, so that when people are coming up there and wanting to test out and see if they wanted to get into flying, they had another plane up there to use. Because honestly, I had obviously grown out of it and was getting into other things here. Now, in my personal opinion, the STS Apprentice is an awesome plane to learn how to fly with. There's that, the Aeroscot, and some stuff like that. They aren't real expensive, super easy to fly, very easy to land. They have safe mode in them, and it has the gradual switches on them. On even the stock controller that comes with the plane, you have 3 modes. So you can start out, with the safe mode, and then you can go to intermediate mode, and then you can go to full open mode, where you have a lot more control of that airplane. And that's what I learned on was the Apprentice. Really happy with the thing, really love it. Had a ton of fun with it, learning how to fly, as many of you guys have seen through the videos. But personally, that's what I would want to pick if I was starting all over again. But I know a lot of people out there will have different opinions on what they started out with. Some people might have better skills right off the rip. But if you're looking for something great to start with, I would highly suggest the Apprentice. The plane I moved on to after the Apprentice, which I don't have anymore either, we keep showing the air tractor here, but was the Carbon Cub S2. It was an awesome plane, had a little bit more maneuverability, was a little bit more agile. You had to land a little bit faster. It was also a really great plane. It was a great next step for me. At least I felt like I kind of progressed that way. I don't have that plane either anymore. I gave it to my nephew because he's been progressing to learn how to fly. I gave it to him to have some fun with. But after that, we bought the air tractor here, which I was very hesitant about at first. I wasn't sure if I was going to like this plane, if it was going to kind of be what I was hoping for the next step. But honestly, this thing was a ton of fun. The air tractor has a 5-foot wingspan here as a triple prop, and this thing has just been a blast. I still take it out pretty regularly. It's a lot of fun. It's fast. It runs on 4S or 3S. Very maneuverable. Could do lots of stunts in the air. I've had this thing out there ripping around, and had a couple little accidents with it. Number of times I've had this thing dead sticking in the earlier. When I first started flying it, had to learn the battery times whenever you're running that thing wide open. I had a number of dead sticks and kind of came down into some rough areas. I think that was a fence post. But it's got lights on the ends of the wings. It also has front lights coming in. So like when you're running in the evening, really neat looking plane. Super easy to run and load your batteries into. Little cockpit pops open here. Load your batteries in and just pop that right back closed. But yeah, if you're kind of moving from the Apprentice and wanting to move up, honestly, this is the next great step. Also, obviously runs on safe mode or the new AS3X, and very fun, maneuverable plane. I think it was a great next step because it was very fast, at least especially for when I first learning. A lot faster, a lot more maneuverable, and also very nice and easy to fly and land. It also comes with flaps, full working flaps, and was a great plane. Was definitely happy with this purchase. But again, guys, I know there are tons of great planes out there, lots of options out there. Horizon Hobby, they got a ton of great planes out there for E-Flight, especially when you're first learning and starting out. Honestly, still to this day, all of my planes are from E-Flight. I am starting to look into some other brands and other things that will be coming to the channel. Looking to get in a little bit larger scale. I'm going to start moving up in size and, ESC sizes and all that stuff. So we'll see how she goes. It's been a fun journey, though. We're going to go ahead and pull down the next plane I got and show you what that thing and what happened with that at the beginning. So after I felt like I had reached the limits of the air tractor, this just seemed like the next logical purchase. Was the E-flite Extra 330, and actually, you know, being up at the flying field, Carl, you know who you are. You're basically to blame for this. I was watching him up there fly his Extra 300 and was just loving watching the 3D flying and definitely wanted to get into it. And at the time, E-flite had just released this thing, so I decided to purchase this. Awesome plane. Night and day difference, though, flying this versus flying any of the other planes I had flown. I mean, the maneuverability and how quick this thing turns and does everything obviously was a night and day difference. I've been running this thing with some dual rates, and I've gotten pretty comfortable with it now, running it about 90%, ripping it around. I kind of occasionally flick it back and forth depending on how comfortable I'm feeling that day, but practice makes perfect, right, guys? Unfortunately, the first one I ended up crashing. I started getting a little too cocky one day, was doing tricks way too low to the ground, nose bombed it, completely destroyed the plane. I mean, there was nothing left of the poor plane. So I went out and purchased another one, obviously, and I've been out there practicing again with this one and getting better and better every time I take it out. But this plane has been an absolute blast, loving learning the 3D plane flying. And, you know, little by little, it definitely takes time. You don't go out there and do crazy stuff overnight. That's definitely one thing, guys. Be patient. You know, you go out there, watch other guys out there do stuff. It takes time, and just practice, practice, practice. So after having some fun with the 330 for a while, I decided I wanted to try out another plane. So we decided to go with the Corsair, the E-flite Corsair, and this thing has been a lot of fun. You know, I've been wanting to get a Warbird from the moment I started learning how to fly. Just thought they're very cool looking planes, obviously. And the Corsair, with its unique wings and all that, you know, was one I definitely wanted to try out first. In case anybody's ever wondering, I learned this from one of the guys. I can't remember who I was talking to up at the flying field about this. But why the wings are actually shaped this way was because whenever they were learning, they were first testing out these planes on aircraft carriers, was landing them, the landing gears were buckling, and the only way to keep the landing gears from buckling was by shortening them, and the only way to shorten them was to get the wings lower to the ground. So that's why the wings bend down, so that the landing gears could be shorter, so they'd stop buckling on landing on aircraft carriers. Learned that little fun fact. Unfortunately, this plane quickly saw a few little damaging some damages right off the rip. The first couple flights was great. Nice and smooth, had no problems taking off, landing. Everything was great. And then this damage happened just by me accidentally grabbing a hold of this when it was out in the grass. And this piece right here is paper thin, and it ripped very easily, ripped right off. I have it permanent or temporarily braced with some of this tape. However, I did find those little plastic hinges. If you see the hinges that are on the 330, they slot into the foam on either side, and you glue them in there, and it basically works as a little hinge, because they are a little plastic hinge with a metal pin. I ordered some of those. They just came in, so I'm going to fix this more permanently here. But unfortunately, the only way to fix that, but you have to replace the whole entire fuselage of the plane in order to change just that. So we're coming up with a different fix for that. I ain't changing all that just for that. But also, some fun things about this plane is the way that they set up the flaps on this thing, that they kind of changed it to where you got a full three-piece folding flaps on both sides. And this is where we're going to talk about a controller of the mistake I've made. Purchasing my first controller was I ran into because of this plane. Now, I had an ugly landing with this thing. I was trying to run this thing while I was running it on a 4S battery. And that's something else we're going to really quickly touch base on. I was usually running it on the smaller 2200 milliamp 4S batteries. Now, I ran the plane twice on these 3400 milliamp 4S batteries, and it seemed fine. Now, something happened. Either I put the battery, I wasn't paying attention, and the weight was shifted very poorly to the front, obviously. And I took off, and I couldn't pull up. No matter what happened, I could not keep the front end up, and she nose-bombed, and it took a hard hit, as you can see here. It completely ripped this landing gear out altogether, ripped the wires out, ripped the servo wire out for the retracts on this thing, and also damaged this side a bit. Now, any guys out there also that are looking for a glue for gluing these foam planes back together again, this, personally, has been the best stuff I have found. Actually, buddy of mine is the one that turned me on this stuff. This BSI Bob Smith Industries Quick Cure Epoxy. This stuff works absolutely amazing. I mean, it sets up hard as a rock, really grabs and digs into that foam, and I mean everything is just rock solid in there. So if you're looking for a good glue, highly recommend this stuff. Works really great. But anyway, yeah, so ripped all the landing gears off at once, busted off the little fuel tanks here in the bottom, and had numerous crashes with this thing. But she's all back together, and she is flying. The retracts work fine again, and it took a couple hours, kind of re-gluing, refixing some wires, and laying some stuff down, but she is up and flying again. However, this is where the controller part came into play. Now, when I got this thing, wasn't really thinking. Now, it didn't matter because, again, I'm not running any of my planes on safe mode anymore. I have it there as a security backup, like I stated before. Like, you get in really bad trouble, something happens, you can throw that switch and you bring it back out of the problem. But whenever I got this plane, obviously with the retracts and the flaps, it has eaten up all of my channels, so I can't even have safe mode on this DX6E. So if I was starting all this over again, you look at the price of the DX6E versus the 8 and stuff like that, and you're like, I don't think I'm ever going to really need those extra channels. If you ever plan on getting in the planes with retracts and flaps and lights and anything else, just try to save up and ahead of time go with at least an 8 channel, and then go up from there. An 8 is probably a pretty good way to go and start off, because I mean, unless you start getting some really crazy stuff, the chances of needing more than that are probably pretty slim, at least from what I've gained knowledge on so far. There might be other people out there that might say something differently. I know a lot of people, I might go right up to a 12 and everything else, but again, that all depends on what you're going to do. But yes, if I was going to start over again, I would definitely have gotten an 8 channel off the rip, just to have the flexibility later on, if I did want to put the safe mode on this thing. But again, this plane doesn't have it, because obviously I'm using the other 2 channels up with flaps and retracts and everything else. So, but not a big deal. She's crashed, she's glued back together, and she's ready for another flight. And again, these are the batteries I've been running. Now, most of the times I've been running these, the 2200 milliamp 4S, in the Corsair and the Extra 330. I run a lot of times, though, honestly, the 3400s in the Extra 330. But if I want it to be obviously lighter and a little bit more maneuverable, for really doing more tricks and stuff like that, you run a 2200 milliamp, because obviously weight is your enemy out there, especially trying to do any 3D flying and stuff like that. I'm obviously still very new to that, and I'm learning minute by minute, but I know this has been the best battery to run in there if you're trying to get that thing light and maneuverable. And also in like the air tractor and in the Apprentice and the Cub and stuff like that, and I still have them with these 3200 milliamp 3S batteries. But these have been the main 3 that I've been running throughout all of my planes now. And the other little purchase that I was really happy with were these little plane stands. They're on Amazon and eBay and places. At first I didn't have one. I thought, what do I need? I'll throw the wheels up. But they are definitely nice for working on the planes, especially if you've done damage to them, keeping them up off the ground. I mean, they're cheap. They got a very nice thick foam that goes along the edges to hold the plane in there. Makes it very nice to do work on them. So highly recommend one of those too. But guys, I hope you enjoyed a little video. It's 20 degrees outside currently. Was going to go out and run some cars today. However, it was a little too cold and my work plans changed and I have to leave tomorrow now. So kind of just decided to come down here and do a little plane stuff and throw this video out there. Hope some of you guys watch this, some of you guys enjoy it. If you do, give yourself a subscribe and come back for some more another day. But I hope you enjoyed it. But that's going to do it for today. So until next time, y'all be safe. Be careful out there. Peace out, everybody.